Welcome everyone to episode 27 of the Business of Sports. My name is Ahmad and Elhawli. I am your host, and as always, my co-host, Mr. Rob Yowell, joins me on the show. Rob, how are you, buddy? How's things?
I'm good, my friend. Back from some travel. Good to be home, and good to be back on with you this week.
My absolute pleasure, buddy. Another big week, lots to talk about, and a group that's becoming our regular guests. Every week we seem to be talking about him again. The Saudi investment fund is at it again. This time a completely different sport. Tennis. Here we go. So Saudi Arabia has now inquired about investing in the ATP, which means now that we might have another comical situation like we had with the Live Golf and PGA Tour. So pretty much what's happened is that Saudi Arabia has pretty much gone and met with the ATP, negotiations behind the scenes, so on, and they've said to them that, you guys, you could do some more funding. We could enhance things for you. You could, we can give you funding to drive your media, your data, and technology advancements, and really change things up, like we've done in Live and the PGA, like we've done now in Saudi Arabia with our 4 teams. We're attracting all this talent from Europe, like we've done with all the boxing and so on and so on. And there was a tennis tournament last year in Diriyah. So why not? And the ATP has pretty much said, yes, absolutely, let's talk. And and there has been some interesting background. I'll give a couple of quotes from a couple of stars. John McEnroe, which is obviously a legend, has gone and commented. He pretty much said, after the current debacle in golf, this idea is a comical idea. Why would you go near them? So he's pretty much fired a warning. But then you have Nick Kyrgios, who's gone out and tweeted. Of course, he's a current player. Finally, they see the value. We are going to get paid what we deserve to get paid. Sign me up. So past players, they're shooting the alarm bells. Current players are saying, wow, this is time for us to get paid. What's going on, Rob?
Well, it's the classic old school get off my lawn guy, and new school I'm ready to get paid guy. Two different perspectives, but first and foremost, you're right. The private investment fund is, might as well be a co-host of this podcast, because we've pretty much discussed them virtually every week, because they've been active. And again, at the end of the day, they want to be part of sport and on the global level, and where there's an opportunity for them to fund or sponsor sports properties, they are active. They're not being a passive player. They're being very aggressive. And look, no one can blame the ATP, seeing the PGA acquiesce and partner with the organization. It's one of the pro leagues that actually the athletes are independent contractors. They work. They're members of the association. They pay their expenses. They don't work for a team. They don't get a salary. They basically eat what they kill. When they go to a tournament and they advance, they get certain prize money, and that's what they win. So seeing the PIF and Saudi investment into tennis, and it's just a matter of time before we see it. Not just in the ATP, but WTA as well, most likely. Both of those organizations could use some cash influx. Question is, are we going to see the commentary? Women. Past champions, etc. May also be very vocal. Now the question is, will the Saudis get involved in that? We don't know, but they have made that step with the men, and here we go. What does that mean? Does that mean they didn't launch a rival league like they did with Live in comparison to the PGA Tour? This is more of the direct reproach. Hey, can we buy in? Let's not go through the hassle of starting another tour, because we can, and we could, and maybe we will. And Nick Kyrgios might be the first guy to jump. He'll be like, "Pay me. I'm there. I'll be your flagship guy." Um, do you see a former, champion? Does a I'm not saying that he would, but does a Federer come out of retirement for a stupid number to help launch a rival tennis league? Certainly could. Might be worth it. I mean, they were going to pay Tiger 800 million, and he can't walk 18 holes. So, at the end of the day, it's probably a very good financial thing for the game of tennis. And as we said with golf, you will probably see a fifth major of some sort get created, and be held in Riyadh, or somewhere maybe in one of the Emirates or something, to where it dwarfs the financial winnings of the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, French Open, and the Australian Open collectively. You could win $20 million by winning the Saudi Masters, kind of thing. Who knows? But um, money talks in this business. They have been very aggressive. It's a natural it's a natural sport for them to get engaged and involved with, because you're not dealing with owners. You're dealing with a governing body or a league. Players are independent contractors, so therefore, more money in prize money is, they're all for that. And it's fairly, for them, a fairly easy conversation to have. Here's another 100 million, 200 million, 300 million into your organization to increase infrastructure, prize money, um, upgrade certain venues, perhaps. Maybe they kick into some player travel and some of the international things. Growing the sport internationally. Uh, all very positive results. It's not a I don't view it as a negative, but obviously, John McEnroe is just one of many. I'd love to hear what some others have to say, and kind of get their reason why, because it's not, again, they didn't start a rival tour. They didn't attack it in a way that they did golf. I can understand the sensitivities with a lot of the legends in golf, because they basically they raided the cupboard a little bit. Hey,
Yeah,
Dustin,
yeah,
Phil, Bubba, whatever, we're just paying you guys to leave to legitimize our, and this is one where they're actually coming, really, knocking on the front door with a bag and going, hey, how can we help? Do you need help?
yeah,
Could you use additional funding? The answer is yes. The answer is always yes. What's the catch? That's the question. I think we'll learn more about that, down the road. Um, and the question will be, do you see them jump into the women's game, where I think obviously culturally would be interesting for them as well. But certainly,
they've
the
tried.
ATP, huh?
They've tried to, and they got knocked back. So
Yeah.
the
So
WTA
so
was raising a fund recently, and they chose the Saudis, threw money at them, but they went with I think a company called CVC Holdings, or of the sort. They raised $300 million. So they've tried with the women. It's a bit more complicated. As you said, they tried to sponsor the FIFA World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and there was huge backlash from the different the civil rights groups, and they've had to sort of re-engineer their campaign for that World Cup and only sponsor certain aspects of it and not not the actual main World Cup. So we're seeing a bit of sensitivities around women's sports and the Saudis, and women's sports, like, don't get me wrong, they're doing great, but they need the money more than the men at this stage if they're going to develop and grow and try and grow their game. So I'm not sure why people are knocking this back. No country on earth has got a clean past. Everyone's got, a dent somewhere. So it's just about sort of accepting and moving on and understanding they're coming to you to work with you, work with them. Maybe you can have a positive change on them. So anyway, so yeah, sorry to cut you off, but they have tried that.
Yeah, no, and again, I mean, I figured that there's probably been attempts and there's reasons why they've been rebuffed at some point, and but I think it all circles back to in the case here with what we're seeing in the ATP is that once again, um, money can resolve. It not resolves, but I mean, it obviously helps. Enhance the league, enhance the organization. Increase in prize money, and when you're dealing with independent contractors as your primary talent, that speaks volumes, and it did in golf, and and I think it will in men's tennis. I think you'll see. Um, I think you'll see a high rate of acceptance, from current players, and probably more recent. If there's a recent player, I mean, like John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, and those players played in a totally different era, and you know, um, I'm surprised that McEnroe would be so anti, because if I'm the the Saudi fund, he's kind of one of the guys I'd want to be one of my ambassadors, of the game. So, you know, so at some level, maybe he cost himself his own payday by popping off a little early. But I don't know. We'll see. I would imagine that Pete Sampras and Jim Courier and a few other guys might be very interested.
Jim Courier is one. Yeah.
Jim.
Jim's a bit of a face because he comes down to the Australian Open and he sort of gets around. But what is it with these Aussies jumping at the money straight away, at the Saudi money? You had Greg Norman first, and then now Kyrgios, and who's next?
Hey.
Maybe Leighton Hewitt.
Danny Ricardo's out there too, looking for a ride. Maybe they'll fund him.
Crazy. I mean, they're going to keep going. They're going to find people to work with because that's just the way that the world works. And yeah, it's interesting. These sports are finally getting the money that they deserve, and it's very exciting times. We are living, once again, I know we've said this multiple times, we are living in the golden age of sport, and we are very lucky to be a part of it. I'll move on to our next talking point. This one we spoke about last week. This one's a bit of a rivalry that's really heated up. Fanatics fights back to outbid DraftKings. They've come out of nowhere and they've submitted an offer of $225 million. That's a 50% increase on the original offer. And the funny part is that it was a cash offer that was unanimously recommended by the PointsBet board. So no objections. Yes, get it in and let's go. Boom. It was released. It was pretty much pushed through. Then DraftKings didn't even have time to sort of come back with anything, and they pretty much said they're out. So now the board, the shareholders will come together and vote on this deal. But what we're seeing is that why Fanatics really wanted this PointsBet deal is because it's going to accelerate their push into industry. It's going to give it the technology they need, the trading capabilities, and once again, the market access that PointsBet currently has now opens up doors for fanatics, warm leads, warm path into these markets. Not just for betting, they will incorporate other aspects of their business. Michael Rubin, this guy's unbelievable. He's just yeah.
Well, he's got backing, he's got vision, he's got the he's not afraid to make a bold move, and
No.
here we are in a case where made a play for PointsBet. DraftKings responds, and we talked about it last week. Hey, if I'm PointsBet, I'm glad DraftKings got in because obviously it was an increase over the next deal. So if Fanatics really wanted it, they come back in with another offer, which they did. And oh, by the way, DraftKings did not meet their deadline, or to formalize that their 195 offer. So look, the winner in this case is the shareholders of PointsBet, right? They went from 150 to 225 on the sale in a week's time.
Crazy.
And they were struggling and having to shutter operations over here. So and again, we talked about it a little bit last week. It gives Fanatics key strategic hold in a platform that they have great interest in. They already have significant relationships globally through their merchandising relationships. I mean, there'll be a natural push for them to push out their, whatever their, their betting or fantasy or whatever their component's going to be under the PointsBet or Fanatic Bet or whatever they end up calling it, platform. And again, it's diversifying a company that was primarily in that retail merchandise collectibles business, and now they've moved into a sector that's obviously a fast growing one here in the U.S., one that's globally accepted, and they're a recognized name that will now have a new offering to their global audience. So again, we tip of the cap to Michael Rubin, his executive team, for not getting emotional, not getting pissed off, not saying anything bad. They just responded with what a sound, well-run company is going to do if they wanted that asset, which they did. All right, good for them. Here's my next offer, and that next offer was significant enough to where I don't know if DraftKings is still on the clock or not, but I think the folks at PointsBet are like, get this thing done, let's close this thing, move along. And DraftKings had their moment. They showed that they didn't close it within the time frame, and Michael Rubin said, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. No fooling me twice.
Why
here.
would they back out? Why would they back out? Why would DraftKings not go all the way here?
Don't know. But at the end of the day, maybe their whole play was to call Fanatics bluff, see if they're really serious, and if they were going to buy it, then they were going to at least make them buy it for $75 million more than what they offered. So at the end of the day, maybe there's a few people that have a little shares in PointsBet that we don't know that work at DraftKings. I don't know.
But see, I would have looked at it a bit differently. It's like I would have fought to keep this little guy out from our industry, made him work harder, because you know why? Because at the end of the day, this is my world. You're coming into my world.
Yeah,
I'm not going to make it easy for you, right? Because at the end of the day, business is war. It is
no,
what it is, right? It's
again.
war. Yeah.
And again, maybe they miscalculated here, thinking that their 195 offer would have kept Fanatics, at bay, that they wouldn't have coughed up more. that Fanatics was probably interested interested at 150, not so interested at over 200, and guess what? They were. And maybe DraftKings wasn't interested in spending 250 to keep him out. Don't know, but um, again, just as the world turns, Fanatics and DraftKings will be ones to keep an eye on, at the next fantasy sports conference, because they'll be in the same room. We'll see how they interact.
Interesting. All right, let's see how that one plays out. Let's move on to our next talking point. This one was a very big one. Alpine F1 team raises $220 million. Now, that's point number one. The more interesting point is who invested. Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhaney, Michael B. Jordan, Redbird Capital. Welcome to the world of F1. The Wrexham crew.
Yeah.
The Wrexham crew are coming to the world of F1. Interesting deal. Lots of excitement for the Renault team. You've been following this very closely, so I'll hand it over to you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's first and foremost, I mean, an investment or a stake in an F1 team is not something that's really publicly ever out there. Those opportunities present themselves on a rare case to case basis. They're, again, it's not like, they're not put out there. Hey, we're offering up 24% of Alpine. It's not out there in that normal brokerage type of way that you might be able to buy 8% of an NBA team or 20% of an MLB team. And when those deals do happen, they are not not money deals. They're not influx of cash, because every one of those teams, from Red Bull all the way down to Williams, is not about a money play. Technically, I mean, it's not about funding, because 220 million. That's 3 races operation.
Sounds like a lot, but in that world, it's
not a lot at all. Those deals are what's key about them. They're either technology related deals. What can you bring performance wise to make us go faster, or make us be better in some other way? And or are you bringing something else that enhances our image, enhances our profile, therefore enhances our attractiveness to sponsors? And that's what this is. You bring Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney to the table with what you've seen with Wrexham, what you've seen with Ryan and his acquisitions of Aviation Gen, Mint Mobile, those types of deals. The 224 million is nice. Look, that's the cost to play. Redbird Capital is obviously backing of the XFL. Maybe we're going to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson show up at in the paddock here soon. What's going to happen is now the Alpine team, which has 2 very good drivers, but they don't have Lewis Hamilton. They do not have Max Verstappen. They don't have Charles Leclerc. They don't have some of the faces that the casual F1 fan might know. You and I may know them because we follow the sport a little bit more. Someone else may know them because I saw them featured on Drive to Survive. But in the global space, I mean, sponsors aren't drawn to this team because I'm going to spend $500 million on a livery in F1, and I'm just going to Ocon is my favorite driver. No. But now when you get that pitch and Ryan Reynolds is talking about, hey, I'm bringing Aviation Gen, I'm bringing in Mint Mobile, and now we're gonna tie this into what I'm doing at Wrexham, and we're gonna kind of create a whole new Deadpool's going to be driving the car. Now you've got something that not only is good for F1, raising the profile, because obviously with their entry into it, brings a whole new fan in. But for that team, the sponsor, the eyeballs on that team, so value of sponsorship, value of their merchandising, value of their overall program, you know, just went up. And that because we've got a client that's very interested in getting a stake into an F1 team, but it's you don't knock on the door and say, hey, I've got x amount of million, can I get in? They're not taking those calls. It's got to be a strategic play. So that's that therein lies some of the challenge, unless we see the current Concord allows for 13 teams on the grid. So we'll see if there is going to be additional teams. But right now, I think one of the goals with F1 is to continue to keep it 10, continue to see the valuation of every team get over $1 billion. And then you might see a couple new teams added at that billion plus number. But they're not going to let anybody else in for under $1 billion, and until they and it'll be hard for them to justify that until they got every team on the grid worth $1 billion. And that deal, what valued it at a little over 900 million? Is that what I think that was where the calculations came out?
Yeah.
And that it will quickly go over $1 billion the minute Ryan Reynolds turns his marketing machine on it, and Redbird Capital says, "Hey, here's what we'll kick into it." Then all of a sudden, I think when we see those guys hit the grid next, you're going to see you will notice the impact, and it will be quite interesting to follow to see one, not only how that team does, what's going to be the monkey see monkey do, who's next? Do we see another team look to replicate that? Much like we saw teams going out and getting more athletes involved, athlete investors, and some of the other sports. Here's obviously the Hollywood strength, but I mean, again, not just Hollywood. This is not just this is not this isn't Tom Cruise deciding he wants to get involved in Formula One because he's going to be doing Days of Thunder 2 and he wants it to be a Formula One angle. No, it's not that. It's Ryan Reynolds is while he's a great actor, or I should say an entertaining actor, he's a better marketer, and he's proven it, and a better businessman. And those are things that the entire evolution of Wrexham and the evolution of the brands that he's been associated with is what makes him attractive as an investor or a partner in a deal for F1. He's not bringing anything to the table that's going to help the car go faster or help the driver drive better or anything else. But what he has done is he's, probably call it the Messi effect. I'm curious to see what their Twitter following and their social media following for the team. What has it done since they've announced? I mean, Ryan Reynolds took, Wrexham from 0 to 3 million followers, just in the time of their ownership. I'm curious to what, you just watch some of those little things, those immediate things that you can track. He's going to raise the profile of that team, raises the value of that team, raises the value of the sponsorship for that team. Oh, by the way, he's picking up the phone and calling United Airlines and putting them on the front of the jersey of a fifth division club in European soccer. And hey, United, I now have a Formula One team. We fly around too. What do you think? You want to come over here? Well, sure, Ryan, I really like what you're doing for us with your soccer team. Let's come over there and work with you on your Formula One team. Boom. All of a sudden, those guys are flying, United. So again, watch this one closely. You're going to start to see new sponsors. You're going to see that valuation of that team jump, and I would suspect that we'll see maybe a few others, start to poke around the paddock and see if there's another opportunity, maybe similar to this. But I don't know that there's anybody out there that kind of has the unique combination of what Ryan Reynolds brings, not only from a star power standpoint, but also his savviness as a businessman and a marketer.
Two things. America's got a new Formula One team. Now it's going to represent America because now Ryan Reynolds is going to push it all through the states, and it's going to be a huge following there. Disney Plus will try and get in on the action for a similar series. They're going to have to fight with Netflix. He might change the game there actually, and start impacting things. The other thing is, I think Wrexham might have a new sponsor in Renault because because now it's about working with these two assets. I think they're going to work, as you said, hand in hand. So Wrexham being in Europe, it's definitely a possibility with all the assets that they own and all the growth that they're seeing, and the US market being so big, everybody now wants to advance into it. And I think this is a perfect example of making this team as the pillar owned by, Hollywood actor. These Hollywood actors, now that the US will follow very, very closely. Because let's not forget Michael B. Jordan, right? Because he's a huge profile too.
That's right. That's right.
So,
that's right. You'll see Creed 4 probably on the livery of this Formula One team at some point. And Ryan Reynolds is Canadian. First of all, they consummated this deal at the Canadian Grand Prix. And there is an American team with Haas, but again, it's one of the, it's in the bottom part of the of the grid. And last I heard, Gene Haas wasn't selling. He wasn't taking on new partners, and he would prefer to just take your money, not your expertise. So, again, you need to find the right mix. And again, like I said, these deals are not, you don't walk down the paddock and someone's got a for sale sign sitting out front of it, right? Or looking for partners. They're always looking for strategic alliances. And in the case where a Ryan Reynolds group or a Redbird Capital approaches any one of the teams in the paddock and says, we're interested in getting involved, it's going to be financial, but it's got to be financial plus. I mean, we've talked about the sovereign wealth funds that are all represented on the grid, and their involvement is certainly financial in most of those cases, and it's for an opportunity to get into a minority stake, you really do need to bring more to the table than just funding. You've got to have some either technical expertise, something that's going to make them go faster, something that's going to make them more attractive to be more valuable. And we have that here. And look, I think you're right. I think you're going to see, as we add a third Grand Prix here in the U.S., I can guarantee you Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney are going to be in Vegas. There's going to be, there's probably going to be a lot of appearances of them in the upcoming the upcoming season of Drive to Survive. You might see some cross promotional stuff where their drivers come out to Wrexham and make some appearances there, because there will be some very natural crossover for time of year, and certainly the game is one that those their drivers are fans of, and look, it's driving up the value of one team, and it's certainly going to enhance the value of the one they currently own with Wrexham. So it's going to be, as a marketer, look forward to sitting here and watching the chess pieces get moved on this one, and I think it'll be fun to watch.
Well, you got the upcoming Wrexham tour, right? So
yeah, they're coming over.
Yeah, so they're coming to the US because the US is the holy land of sports and business. Don't worry about Canada. Canada's like Australia, where the best
Canada's
seven
nice.
states. Yeah, it's nice, but
It's a great North American partnership.
that's all it is. But in terms of business,
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah,
even, you know what I mean? That's why I said America's got a new F1 team, because that's what he's done with Wrexham. Wrexham, he's made Americans feel like this is their team. Through Disney's activations, through his activations, through using ESPN and whatnot. And I can almost guarantee you it's going to be a similar path. So we're going to see now what we've seen with Wrexham, but I think on steroids a bit more, because F1 is like the big dog. You know what I mean? It's on an international level. You sort of wave the flag a bit, right? So
yeah,
so now this is going to be a completely different level to Wrexham, and we're going to see a lot of intrigue. And as you said, look, Redbird Capital also owns stake in AC Milan, works with the Fenway Sports Group. So there's a lot of potential star power that could get involved in this. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see how this actually plays out. But we'll sit back and watch, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it moving forward.
yeah.
Speak
I wouldn't be surprised if you and I have a topic on them in the next couple of weeks.
for sure, for sure. They're definitely going to start making noise. Speaking of American owners, Chelsea, Mr. Todd's been getting up to business. He's making things happen, and this is becoming a very familiar story. Clubs owning multiple clubs around the world, using them as pathways, as talent academies, agencies, whatever you want to call them. It's a whole new different business model. And the consortium Blue Co, which is the owners of Chelsea and whatnot, has reached an agreement to become majority shareholders of French club Strasbourg. Strasbourg was a third tier club in the French soccer division, and now they're playing in League One. They finished 15th last season in League One, but are we seeing another Wrexham story here? Is Todd gone? He's gone. I'm going to France. I've seen these guys come up all the way. A bit different because they've already made it up, but they're buying an asset that's worked its way up. It's got potential now to inject all these funds into it because the hard work is there. The team, the team chemistry is there, because for them to do what they've done, you need a lot of that. You need to play for one another. You need to have an understanding of one another's games, and you have to be one tight knit team to get through all that adversity and hardship. And has come across and said, "Yeah, we'll buy you. We'll inject some funds into you from what the Saudis have invested in Clearwater, and yeah, we'll just make it all come together."
Might loan out a couple of my Chelsea guys that aren't working out here, but I still own them, and I'll send them down there to get sharp. And look, look, timing wise, League One is going to start to look pretty wide open with PSG, losing Messi, shipping out Mbappe, and Ramos heading, either over to MLS or perhaps to Saudi. Who knows? But that team may not be as strong, and so they may look at that as one. French League One is probably the fourth, fifth league in Europe.
Yeah, top five.
Yeah, it's top five,
Just
but
yeah,
yeah. It's some may say Bundesliga too, outdraws them, but as an opportunity, it's the ability to move and place some players still at a top level to get them quality minutes, and then but to loan them out and still control them. And if they're going to do any work for you, they do it on a club that you own in another league, which isn't bad. But look, you're right. I mean, you're starting to, it's a trend that clubs own strategic multiple clubs and in strategic locations. We were talking about the Qatari group owning PSG and owning strategic holds, around the world, so that teams in Brazil and Citigroup doing the same thing and owning multiple franchises around the world, so that they have a presence, both from scouting and player development, but also having some places to loan out some talent, Premier League talent that maybe needs some seasoning, or in some cases maybe they made a poor purchase. They don't want to take a bath on a transfer, because they've been sitting a guy and he's not playing on their Premier League roster, but they can loan him out, to Strasbourg, and maybe maybe he has a resurgence, maybe has a 25 goal season, and now a Serie A team's a little bit more interested. In that transfer fee is a little bit higher than it would have been had he been a bench warmer at Chelsea. So I mean, again, strategic move, and financially certainly a drop in the bucket to what they paid for Chelsea. And I think there's upside there, right? I mean, I think it's you're in a league that just the top of the table is coming back to the pack a little bit for next year. Assuming assuming as it looks right now. I mean, obviously Mbappe hasn't gone anywhere yet. Messi is apparently arriving here on July 21st to play his first game. It'll be interesting. But look, Todd's got to make some good moves here. I mean, again, I think taking this summer to assess the Chelsea situation, invest in the sport. Sometimes this is the time to double down. Get another. I mean, not just admit mistakes and ship players out. To another league and never see them again. Maybe that he's got some players that still have value that need to need a little rehab project, and maybe playing in League One is just what the doctor ordered. Where they can go and still play top level European soccer. Maybe elevate the club, and also elevate their transfer price. Or they earn a trip back to Chelsea because they got their confidence back, and maybe it was a humbling experience. Like you said, it's a club that's got great chemistry. They fought their way up from third division all the way up to the top, the first division, and that's inserting a player into an environment like that after coming from an environment that Chelsea had for the majority of the season might be refreshing for some of those players, and for some of them it may be a wake up call and say, hey, maybe I got to just check my ego at the door and come here to just play the game I love. And they find themselves performing at a top level and going, if we had this at Chelsea, we'd be better. And maybe that's, my mission is to go back there and kind of bring this culture. And maybe, or not, but I mean, it could also just be like, hey, I'm playing the game, I'm enjoying it. And so wherever I go next, that's what I'm going to look for. And some of them may say, can I stay here permanently? And, who knows? Yeah. You may have a Leicester City, in Strasbourg, coming out of nowhere to, snag a title and get themselves into the Champions League. And who knows what can happen next? Go figure.
That definitely changes the game. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, once again, we'll sit back and watch and just see how things play out. Let's stay in the world of football / soccer. Barcelona signs partnership with Logan Paul's Prime. Wow. They're leaving Gatorade to sign with Prime as their new energy drink sponsor. This is phenomenal because another big team that also signed with Prime is Arsenal. And everyone's looking at it as, as a pathway into the American market, so on and so on. Yeah, it is. But it's also a pathway into this Gen Z world where that's who follows these guys, right? It's a pathway to staying relevant and becoming a club that becomes a destination club for fans in that age group, which are very hard to interact and engage because their behaviors are very different to millennials and other age groups. That's what it is, in my opinion. But it's big moves. If they're ditching Gatorade for Prime, it's what's going on. I don't know if you've tasted Prime, because I haven't, because I refuse to fall into the hype.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah. Well, look, it's a I would say it's a move that predicated on two things. One, um, Gatorade, is the 800-pound gorilla, and in many cases they have relationships, across the world in global sport, and
yeah,
sometimes they just have a number of what they'll pay you. Okay, and it's it's Gatorade, and I would say that they're Barcelona is still going to say we're Barcelona, and Barcelona is, if there's ever a time where they really need to take advantage of their market value. They're going back. They won La Liga, going back to Champions League. Messi's not coming back, and Gatorade may have maintained that if Messi came back, but Gatorade probably gave him a take it or leave it offer, and Prime, Arsenal's nice. Arsenal's a nice get. This is FC Barcelona. This
it's huge.
uh, it's a global brand, and for them, you know, I would imagine that they came in at a higher number. Um, I promise you that the athletes will still be drinking Gatorade out of a Prime bottle, but you and I both know that the eyeballs are going to look at Prime, and Prime's going to use this to find ways to push more product, open up the Spanish market, the European market, with
The
with
world
more.
market,
Yeah, it's going to explode it,
the
and
world.
and the right, and the there's some young players on FC Barcelona that fit their profile. You got Logan Paul, out there going to be marketing like crazy. Don't be shocked to see, maybe a better deal down the road, where they could start finding their way in, Jake bringing his betting brand over. I mean, so it's a big deal, not shocking, but one that I think will, I think, be a great deal for both of them. Now it's how they market it, how they leverage it, how they activate it will depend on how successful it's going to be. I think it makes sense, and I think both brands have a lot of reason to work together to see it succeed.
For sure, absolutely. Barcelona has the Barcelona Academy, which goes to over 30 countries around the world, and all those all the age groups are from like 7 years old to like 14, 15 years old, which is who these are the kids that follow KSI and Logan Paul.
Yeah.
So that's thousands, tens of thousands of kids around the world. So this is a huge partnership. It's going to be really interesting to see which other clubs will follow suit. But all the best to them. Let's move to a different style of football. The NFL in Germany sells out in 15 minutes. Wow! Listen to this. 1.2 million fans tried to get an NFL ticket in Germany. The Vivid Seats told Front Office Sports that their site traffic for the game spiked by 753% from Monday to Tuesday. It's the second most expensive average ticket price at $854 of an NFL season. What the hell is going on? Why has the NFL hit in Germany that others are not seeing?
Well,
There's definitely an appetite. The people are hungry for NFL.
well, Germany is one of the has one of the top domestic leagues. They have one of the top teams in Elf, and to get a ticket for one of the 3 games that's played in London, um, they limit how many European, again, kind of like some of the teams have done. They got to know where your zip code is. Only a certain amount of those tickets for those 3 games that are played in London are made available. Are available to European fans. So obviously, the game in Germany, is kind of that one, and two. I mean, look, the game's at an all time high, right? The you're seeing domestic leagues popping up, or domestic leagues in pretty much throughout Europe. Or Elf is entering its 3rd season as a kind of a reincarnated version of NFL Europe. The game itself is massively popular, and if you're a fan of football, you want to see football in its highest form, just like us as soccer fans want to see Premier League, or we want to see World Cup. The Argentinas of the world, the Brazils of the world play the game at the highest level. If you are a football fan, the highest level of this game is the NFL, and if it's going to be, in your country or next to your country, and you can get to it, or have a chance to get to it. This is, for some of them, maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity. There's speculation certainly down the road that the NFL, perhaps this may be kind of the, their outreach to kind of make a decision on whether or not they do create a European division, down the road. Do we see additional franchises? I mean, real franchise. We're playing real games now. The next step is: do we put teams in London? Do we put teams in Paris and in Berlin and Madrid and the like? So what happens next? We'll see. But the game's just incredibly popular. And this is just certainly a byproduct of supply and demand. More than anything else. There are 4 games played in Europe. 3 of them are played in London, and getting those tickets as a European is very difficult. And so I would imagine that it's it was a Taylor Swift debacle of some sorts, probably, when folks are sitting there in the queue, hoping to see their number get pulled up so that they could buy 2 tickets or 4 tickets or whatever it was. But you referenced the folks at Vivid Seats. I mean, the secondary market for that game is going to be crazy, and I would imagine that there is quite a few of the tickets purchased will be sold on a secondary market for a nice markup.
Interesting. Let's see how that pans out. Definitely.
Let me know if you want to go.
Let me know if you want
to go to the game. We know a guy.
People might take you up, mate. You better be careful.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep moving. DirecTV has agreed to a multi-year deal to carry NFL Network and NFL Red Zone. Why I thought this one was interesting is because DirecTV just lost its Sunday ticket assets to YouTube TV, and now to bring on the different side of football, where it's all about the talk shows, the analysis, the experts talking about the game and so on, is very interesting. Where do you see this move going, and how will this compensate what they've lost?
It won't compensate what they lost, but the red zone, is something that was a very popular part of that DirecTV package. They had their own, but it was a standalone as part of their. Obviously, they had the ticket. Now with the ticket gone, the ability to kind of now partner in with the NFL Network and their their red zone. And Andrew Siciliano is now out. His program's out, and they bring in, the NFL Network. I mean, I think a couple things. One, DirecTV still wanted that association with the Shield, that's what this gives them. NFL Network is not, um, included in the standard DirecTV package. You got to get the enhanced package. So there are probably still some football junkies out there, certainly some fantasy football junkies that watch more of the red zone than they watch anything else. And so, I think it's a way to kind of still capture and create, direct TV, provide value, and drive viewership to direct TV. I think it's also something that all of their, sports bar relationships want. Um, and they have that direct TV subscription, and maybe this is something that helps keep those customers happy, because it's I think we all are going to be very interested to see how the YouTube direct TV ticket platform works, how successful it is. I mean, just like we're watching how well Apple does with MLS, the streaming partners could have some glitches. There could be some areas, and DirecTV has kind of set itself up, endeared itself, if you will, to the NFL by putting their network and their red zone as their kind of Sunday football offering. And it's always good to stay close to the the big dog in these cases. And so I think in that way they made us a strategic move to still keep some NFL football driven content on their channels, and make it valuable. And again, it's not going to replace what they lost, but it gives them a branded element, and keeps them puts their brand next to the Shield, which ultimately I think is a good thing.
So an interesting fact: Amazon's Thursday night stream is white labeled NBC, right? They use NBC Stack, the NBC technology, to stream the game because they don't have the technology to do it just yet. Imagine YouTube turned around and did that with DirecTV.
And they said, "Hey, we'd love to have your red zone package."
Wow.
Okay. Sure, it's going to cost you double.
Yeah. Interesting times. All right.
Yeah. And again, it'll be interesting to see, does Andrew Siciliano pick up the phone and call YouTube and go, my red zone channel is now available? We'll see. I mean, he's obviously, a recognizable face, and we'll see. But, I think it was one of those things where if you're DirecTV and you've got a chance to, stay close to the Shield, then that's where you go. And they did.
Absolutely. Interesting. Let's see what happens. Let's keep going. Our last talking point. It's been a long episode. One Championship partners with Media City Qatar. So those of you that don't know what Media City Qatar is, Qatar's built this city where it's built out, ready to go for over 60 media outlets around the world. They come there, they use it as a place to film, do their shows, do all these different media activities. They also have an element of it that's for entrepreneurs, influencers, and so on. It's a mechanism of attracting talent and companies and organizations to Qatar who otherwise would not come, basically. One Championship is the biggest fighting championship or biggest fighting league in the Asian region. They're opposition to the UFC. I'd say they're the second largest after the UFC, even though the PFL claims to be. I don't think so. They pretty much agreed on a partnership where they will work together to start producing all these live martial arts events in Qatar, starting in Qatar and trying to sort of venture throughout the Middle East. The key to this partnership is Bain Sports. Bain Sports will come in as a partner and also distribute these shows through their network, which is a huge network, specifically in the Middle East and even through Europe and all these other regions, because they buy up a lot of these soccer rights or football rights or whatever you want to call it in these different regions. So we're seeing Qatar now coming into the fold. Qatar's looking for events after the World Cup to keep people coming back there. They've gone and taken out the FIBA, the volleyball, all these other World Cup like events, but so they can keep the tourism coming through now that they've built all this infrastructure for it. So that's an interesting partnership that I thought that we could sort of talk about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, again, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, Qatar is looking for life after World Cup. They've made the
Yeah,
investment, and there's going to be challenger brands that are going to be, are going to be in a great position. I mean, obviously, UFC wasn't going to be an option. We talked several weeks ago about PFL's involvement with the Saudis, in uh, with Nagano and kind of creating the African League and kind of pushing in that way. And, and you're right. I think one is, one championship, I kind of remember, for a little bit further back, when it was Pride and, in those groups, Lion Fight, and a few others, Muay Thai fighting. I mean,
Strike Force.
yeah, Strike Force. I mean, and you now kind of have and it's not it's not a it's not a stretch move. I think it's a move that it's a viable brand, and it's one that can I think already has a pretty good following. It makes sense for them to partner with Qatar and produce their content there. You know, you know, we've seen that the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been big movers in the combat game, both with UFC and with premium boxing. Qatar, hey, I'm going to emulate that, but I'm not going to do what you're doing. I'm going to go in a different direction and get one that I can call my own. And this is an opportunity
Yeah,
for them to build with someone who, hey, we're a pretty good league too. We've got great content, but we're not gonna go to Saudi and be the second or third fiddle. We're gonna go to Qatar and we're gonna be your number one game, your number one fight game, and so it makes a lot of strategic sense, and we'll see how obviously distribution and things of that nature. But I think it's a wise move for both. Because there's a natural built-in audience that comes with them, and for the league standpoint, you know you're getting that technology, you're getting that that infrastructure. And you've got and look, there's probably a little bit of financial support snuck in there as well. Yeah, absolutely. And let's see how that grows. See if that we see a nice pop in their purses and in their pay-per-views and in their attendance. And to your point, got to keep finding ways to have people come to Qatar to experience the infrastructure that was built for the World Cup. And this is no different than cities like Vegas and Abu Dhabi and the like. I mean, they continue to build, and to attract using sports tourism is a big deal. And that's this is another way for those fans of the one championship to say, hey, I'm going to see the fights in Doha. Let's go. You know, let's get there and let's go see the fight. And, that's now they kind of become part of the travel calendar, travel sports calendar, for those fans. And if they have good fights, which I imagine they'll come out of the gate with a kick-ass card right out of the gate, something you can't get in boxing anymore, because the good guys won't fight each other. They may be on the card, but they're all fighting tomato cans. You need this is the one thing Dana White always does. Here we are tipping our cap to Dana White. He's worked his way into this podcast again. But if you want
you sort of cut off there, Rob, as soon as he said Dana White. Rob?
Hold on. Lost me.
All right, then. I guess we've that was our last segment anyway. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. Unfortunately, we've lost Rob right at the end there. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.